Hello, Mixer. Hello, Legacy. So, still got our short ribs in the immersion circulator. See how much longer we got on our time. Got another 25 minutes to go on these. We're probably going to leave them in here for another hour, probably past that. I've also got here on the stove, I cheated and started early. I just added some water and killed the boil on this, but we're bringing it back up to a boil. That's a can of sweetened condensed milk with an inch or two of water above it. This is about the minimum amount of water that I would suggest you have in there with it. And that's been boiling at least an hour. Probably closer to an hour and a half at this point. And we're going for about 2 hours at least, so got a little bit longer on that to wait. We got some bread for dinner. We got our potatoes that we're going to boil off here shortly. And going to start off by making the dough for our tart. Zinfandel red wine, Sonoma County. (2012), perhaps on the edge of being a little too old, but good deal as far as I can tell. Vivino telling me $35. Sort of conflicting. Don't know if I trust Vivino on this one. This was more like a 10-bucker for me as far as price. Vivino has it listed at $35, but I don't know how many $35 wines I see with screw caps on them. So we'll see here. Yeah, it depends. A large number of wines really can't handle age. Zinfandel would be one of the ones that's better for handling age. But I mean, you get into the Burgundies and France, and you can hold on to them for practically forever. But those are the ones that are worth more than a house mortgage. So just a small batch of dough, sort of. The other wine, which other wine? You mean my mead on the counter here? That's actually getting pretty clear at this point. The mead, the melomel or mead. It's probably been ready to transfer now for oh. 2 to 3 weeks. It would have been easily able to be transferred. I'm just letting it sit longer on the leaves, give it a little bit more nutty flavor, and then I think I have it on the 22nd planned to do. I'm doing it. It's started in October, so it's 3 months, and then we'll have another 3 months after that, 4 months after that. Well, we'll try it in April or May. We'll give it a taste here when we bottle it, but as I said before, I don't think it'll be ready by then. It'll still probably have a very strong alcohol aroma and flavor to it that mellows with age. A little salt, a little sugar, a little more sugar than salt. Why you no boil? Then, like usual, for our doughs or pastries, especially our doughs or biscuits, gonna chop our butter into small little cubes. Well, I can tell just as easily you can tell me, but maybe you'll notice if it's in chat. I'm not too worried how hard it boils as long as it's not boiling over. Something hard in there, like I maybe should have strained the flour or something. Like it's pretty much at the same temp it was before I added more water to it. I guess not. We're getting there though. That was probably too much water. We'll see. And we'll pop this in the fridge. We'll give it a quick plastic wrap and throw it in the fridge to rest. That's at almost the full flame. I mean, I can maybe eke a little bit more out of it. I often feel that way about my streams. So that's going until 5 o'clock. Which means I can't start on the potatoes, so I'm done with that. Let's clean our spinach. Got some nice, beautiful, local grown spinach. Well, that handful isn't exactly beautiful, but overall it's beautiful. You're going to tell me it was boiling. You see, now I get to blame you. Not really. Actually don't even really have any herbs in the house right now. I've got a sage plant out front that's a little, it's feeling like it's in January. So that, we'll do some garlic with that. Oh, I got a smaller clove in here, don't I? Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I love pizza, but I love pizza using a pizza oven, especially after having worked and using a pizza oven. But I'll definitely make some tomato sauce this summer once we get tomatoes back. We do have some hothouse tomatoes around here most of the year. I don't normally go to the farmer's market that they're at on Saturdays. I don't typically go to the market out on Saturdays. Even though the biggest markets in the county are on Saturday. Biggest markets in Sonoma and Marin are on Saturday. Marin being ridiculously huge. And it's still the only the third largest in the state. I probably will this year. This year I actually have time enough to plant my raised bed that I have behind my little shack here. I already have sage, and I have a thyme plant, but it's pretty sad. It needs a better home. I may rehome it, or I may just let it wither. But I'll probably plant more thyme. I'll probably plant chives. I'll probably plant. I already have cutting celery growing wildly. I'm trying to kill it off. I'm trying to kill everything in the bath going. It's fine. Trying to kill everything off in the water bath. Or water bath. In the raised bed. But I have some cutting celery that's been going wild there, which is not good for, cutting celery, I don't know if you're familiar with, is not good for eating. It's way too fibrous. It's like chewing on wood. But the flavor is amazing, and it still has very tender leaves that you can throw in salads. It's not something you typically find at a supermarket because they don't want to sit there and communicate that this is only for like use in stock or for soups or flavoring, not for chewing. I mean, they barely sell celeriac in most supermarkets. It's really sort of sad, the selection of veggies that people have just out of supermarkets these days, especially the big chain ones. The big chain ones are horrible. Maybe other than Whole Foods. Whole Foods has usually got a pretty good selection of produce, but it's usually overpriced too. Yeah, is the flavor base. I used to use it primarily for stocks, but like I said, the leaves on all celery are great for salads. Give you that same crisp, fresh flavor, especially if you grow it yourself. That's another thing. Some of the veggies you get at the supermarket, I mean, the local farmers have a little bit of a trouble. Oh, hey. Have a little bit of trouble competing with $1 organic celery at the supermarket, but at the same time, the $1 organic celery at the supermarket tastes like dirty water, tastes like filthy water. So we're done cooking here. We're gonna let it keep going, but we're going to set it at a lower temp here. So we're dropping it down. I started the beef at 60 degrees, or roughly 140 something Fahrenheit. This morning I added a bit more water to here, not that it was really necessary, but I decided to just help keep temperatures and everything the same. And I raised it to 65. And so it's had 4 or 5 hours here at 65 degrees Celsius. And now that we're pretty much done, I'm going to lower it down to 50. And I'm going to take it out here, about 5:30ish, to cool down a bit closer to room temp. And the plan with that is we're going to take it out, let it rest to room temp or close to room temp, until it starts to gel a little bit back together. It starts to cool down, that gelatin starts to firm back up a little bit, and then hopefully I can dry the tops off of them enough that I can throw them in my toaster oven and give them a nice quick char under the broiler in my toaster. Mostly because I don't want to reheat this thing up to 500 plus degrees for 15 minutes. Okay, so we still got 30 minutes on this guy. Got that and that. So we're chilling for a little bit. Why don't we open wine? So this is right in my backyard here. This is Russian River Valley, which Russian River runs through Sonoma County, somewhat northern part of it, and western. They're out of Santa Rosa. That's probably where they're processing out of. They probably have vineyards know that like this one's a specific vineyard. I assume there's a couple other varietals that they like to advertise, but it's really Zinfandel that's the one that I notice. It's advertised as having old vines, which, and it at least flavor wise, it does seem to matter to me. See what the taste profile on Vivino is, because I'm getting a little bit of cherry, but there's not getting my usual leather and tobacco for the Zinfandel. Let's see. Notes of licorice and pepper. I don't get the licorice. I get a little bit of pepper. Definitely get pepper on the nose. Prune. I sort of think of prune as just being slightly sweet. And cherry. I get a little cherry to that too. It's pretty. I don't want to call it bland, maybe approachable. It's not bold. So the idea here is we're boiling the can of sweetened condensed milk, and we're going to turn that into dulce de leche by boiling it. And there's several places you can look online, but the difference between when it begins, which is pourable liquid white, to basically a can of thick caramel, which is what we're hoping for. Don't know if we'll really get there. I don't know if I put enough time into it, even with me giving it here another couple minutes. See what their bottle says. Yeah, that's not worth reading. There was something else I took a photo, I think, of the board when I did. Yes. What does it say? Tim and Ann, I'm going to butcher their last names, produce single vineyard Zinfandels from the finest appellations of Sonoma County for Gordian Knot Winery. They use Winberry Vineyard, which is where this one is from. Historic century-old vineyard and they're saying wild blackberry, boysenberry, blueberry, and a touch of spice as far as their tasting notes at the store. I maybe get the blueberry, I get the pepper, I get the cherry. Don't really get the prune, don't really get the other dark fruits. Screw it, we're gonna pull this out now. So we'll let these guys rest on the plate here for a little bit. Then we'll pull them off to a rack to dry. Break down the sous vide station here. This is one of the older Nova immersion circulators. One of the ones, thankfully, before they started rolling all their software into cell phones. It's sort of cool that you had the functionality, but at the same time, do you really need to change the temperature of your immersion circulator from the living room or from school? I'd much rather have it just built the function, like this guy. So all this is a standard Cambro container, but I've taken a Dremel and buzzed away a little bit of the plastic there, so it's a little bit weaker. Got to be a little bit more careful with it. Same thing with this guy. I buzzed it down on either side. That way the Nova fits really nicely on it. But keep in mind, this is probably another, I forget, but it's probably another at least $45 investment on top of the immersion circulator. At least retail prices. I mean, you can find Cambro stuff cheaper, but once you put an NSF sticker on something, it's 5 times the price. No, I'm good with this one right now. I like this guy. I have actually probably haven't gotten enough use out of him. The real problem with these is they die out over time. These, it's all new things. Whether it's immersion circulators or induction burners, they're designed to die out after a while. Let's get my toaster out. I meant to drop that. Probably the whitefish that's on my website, chefjt.com. The first picture that's on there that's from, that's probably, it was when I was living in LA, so that's at least 11 years ago, 12 years ago. It was the first thing I tried to do sous vide, but it was before I had an immersion circulator. And so I did it the way some of the first hotels and stuff were doing sous vide, which is as big of a stock pot as I could get, and getting the temperature to the right temperature and just trying to hold it at the right temperature myself, which is on a stove is like next to impossible. And it was just a beautiful piece of fish. Which is funny because I never cook fish. I think it's on one of my purple plates. Maybe look black on the photo. Let me look. No, it's on a white plate. Yeah, the lime was sous vide. It was poached or sous vide with the lime, the chive flowers, and all the other herbs that are in there. So we'll put these guys on here once we're done draining them and let them dry. It's been a while since I used this guy, so I'm going to give him a rinse off and make sure we get any dust or anything that's accumulated on there. Well, so let's not use this tray either. I'm stealing stuff from my little hibachi grill. With the mushrooms and the rice, it was some sort of risotto. I don't remember what most of these were before. That's got some shrimp in there too. It's got mushrooms, it's got shrimp. Looks risotto-ish with the rice. It's a short grain rice. But like I said, most of this stuff was 2000. Actually, this I think was 2010. So 9 years ago. So let's take these guys out, separate the liquid from these, see what we ended up with. Falling off almost. Quite tender. Same thing with this guy. Just not completely fall apart, but beautifully cooked through and beautifully tender. May need a knife, but that knife ain't gonna get much resistance. So the rest of the liquid here, which was what liquids came out of the beef along with butter, a little soy sauce. We had a couple ounces of soy sauce in there and some salt and pepper. Put that bring that up to a boil with a little bit of wine from tonight. That was 2, maybe 3 ounces of wine in there. I think it's 350 we want for this crust. Let me see. Just about everything in baking is either 350 or 375. I don't think I got anything. I don't think it's going through. Oh, those are, I got the message. Those are cured egg yolks. I'm going to have to do those again here too. Those are great for salads. They're sort of like an alternative to, say, Parmesan or another source of umami for salads. You take egg yolks and you forget the whole procedure, but I believe it's basically you just bury egg yolks in salt and then put them in the dehydrator. But like I said, I'm gonna have to revisit that. That was about a year ago. That was also the suggestion of another friend of mine. We start by curing them in salt. So you essentially create a mountain, put a bunch of salt, pour 2 egg yolks in them, and then completely cover them in salt. And then I think it's 2 weeks or a week in the refrigerator. and that's going to pull large amount of the moisture out of the egg yolks themselves. And that point, they're sort of dry, but they're still sort of jelly-ish. And then I'm remembering this as we go along here, obviously. And then I dehydrated them, or you could just let them sit out to dry. I have a dehydrator, so why not? And then you can, then at that point they're sort of like a hard cheese, and you can grate them over salads or anything that you want to add a little egg yolk like umami flavor to. And then at that point they've been cured and dehydrated, so they'll last for, they should last forever, but I wouldn't trust them to last very long flavor wise. Gonna use this small little guy for our Dulce de leche tart. And we should roll this out a little bit. I enjoy living here. I sort of wish I had a place of my own. I'm renting this little space. But otherwise, I'm happy living in Sonoma County. Not necessarily a bigger kitchen, but a different layout. Well, probably a little bit bigger, but not so much in my space. But I'd like to have my own dishwasher. That'd be nice. But I'd also like to, one of the things that I've been thinking about doing, and one of the things that I would want to look for a place for, is I would want to build an outdoor kitchen space to wherever I'm moving, because I wouldn't really look for one that had it built in, because I feel like I could do it pretty cheaply, because I know a lot of commercial hardware. I have some spare commercial hardware from my business in the past. No, I own a mobile kitchen already, actually. I own a commercial mobile kitchen, which is a completely separate thing. But I'd love any place that I bought from here on out. I'd probably put a pizza oven. I'd probably put an outdoor wok. I'd probably put an outdoor grill, and maybe an outdoor flat top outside. And I could do most of that for a half or quarter of what it would be, and have it be like commercial equipment, which would therefore greatly increase the value of the home that I'm in. And of course I would put, cameras all over it, being me, but that's completely separate. I'd also like to do some things more permanent, like as good of these has worked out, the webcams and on the flexible arms. I would much rather be in my own place where I could mount them to the ceiling, or not worry about putting some holes in some things. So not that losing my security deposit is going to be the end of the world, but sort of live with the mentality of improving things. I'd probably have to upgrade my computer if I'm going to do that. I'm pretty maxed out, mostly because the software, Logitech, doesn't allow you to do more than 2 webcams off of a computer. And I've got a camcorder from my third running through a capture card. I'd need more PCI slots. So we got this guy formed up. We're gonna, might as well dump all of this in here, waste not, want not. Well, I don't exactly have a small number of PCIs. I mean, this used to be my main computer back in the day. It's a good 10 years old. I've upgraded the video card, but the processor was still from when AMD used to be good, before they were good now again. And this is my rice that I have set aside for using as baking wheat. It's probably got some nuts and butter and stuff in there at this point, which is probably where the golden color's from. But this in the oven here for at least 30 minutes. Let's see, 5:33, let's pull out our condensed milk, hopefully caramel. And what am I going to put that into here? I need to be careful what I put that into. Middle bowl. Let that cool down all by its own. We got to make sure that cools down until it's completely cool. If you were given 1.3 million for your new house, which is 600K, what will you buy to make your setup better? Around here with taxes and everything else, it'd probably be a water well with purification and solar power with a battery backup. But I'd still do the kitchen because I could do that anyways. I mean, what I'm talking for the kitchen is maybe, at most, well, the brick and the masonry is actually going to be the biggest question to it, which that could be a bit of money for the brick. That's also how much money you want to throw into it. But as far as equipment and all that, I could have it all decked out with professional style equipment for less than $1,000. And that's used, but that would be, knowing, half of the burners and this can just be replaced with just a tap and a top. I wouldn't be buying like full sets of burners. I'd just be buying the gas setup, the gas regulator setups and the tops, sort of a thing. So we already got some nicely warm water here. But unfortunately, I'm going to get rid of it because we need to start our potatoes in cold water. Give my orchid a steam bath here. It probably doesn't enjoy that. Although it is trying to flower here. It's got a flowering stem going up. Get rid of this bag while that's filling. don't know how many of these I want to do tonight. I think that's pretty big. Let's stick with some of the smaller guys. That's going to be enough for another dinner of some sort. Is this some magazine quiz or something? Add a little cheap salt to our potatoes. Actually can move the beef over a little bit here. I got a fan blowing this way, so I want the fan blowing over the top of these guys. Getting change my perspective here if I can get back to OBS. Gonna pour water over this, and we're gonna add some ice to it after a little while to cool it down. I don't want to cool it down too quickly because of the metal, but we want to make sure that's completely cool before I open it with a can opener, because if you can imagine, you know, like boiling hot caramel squirting out is not a good thing. No. Sorry, that was probably a little loud. But that's why. So now that's completely smothered in ice, even though you can't really see it in the sink. An Indian alpha wolf? Yeah. I do want some of this for this dinner tonight, though, so I think this is going to be the last I pour for while we're cooking. Take our medium-sized cast iron out here for these guys. Really, we're waiting on potatoes and the blind bake here. Oh, I'm constantly trying different wines and brands and vineyards. I'd love if a couple of them sponsored me too. It's one of my hopes. No, I don't have any of them. I don't, but I wouldn't mind it if that was a possibility, but no. Maybe if I have, 400 as many times viewers as I do right now. But no, I'd love to work with long-term goals, long-term streaming dreams. I'd love to work with either kitchen equipment people or vineyards. I'd still want to give honest opinions on stuff, but Don't have to, but since I have the time, I'm going to sit here and pull the stems on these spinach that way. The stem's most likely the hardest part to cook properly, and you'll end up with leaves that are overcooked and just to get the stems properly cooked. So it's nice. They'll probably laugh at me, but yeah. Where are they taking cooking classes? Longer we got on those? Another 10 minutes. Already an hour and a half deep. That guy's ill enough, I'm just going to toss him. Most of the rest of these have been pretty good. That one yellow one had to have been in that handful I pulled because it's the only one that I saw that looked that ugly is that handful I pulled out. It's good. A lot of schools these days don't pay enough attention to culinary. I wish more did. There's a piece of ice I just stepped on. There does seem to be a little bit of a resurgence of schools looking at gardening and letting students know what they're eating, which is really what I'd like schools to get after. Let people realize that everything is 90% of the stuff in the supermarket is made from corn and soy. Have kids stop being grossed out by, basic nature stuff. Pork comes from a pig. You have to kill a pig in order to get pork. Where eggs come from, where all of this stuff comes from, because I think we would have a lot less of this rebellion against meats and stuff like that if people had a better understanding. I have a lot of respect for a lot of the writing that Anthony Bourdain did, and one of his more famous quotes is about, this animal had to die for us to eat. And I'm completely butchering his quote at this point, but we should be respecting everything of that animal, not just the filet mignon. Not just the chicken breasts. There's a whole animal there and there's a lot of great flavors out of that. I mean, I've talked before about how much I love using hocks. They have so much flavor. Actually going to take some paper towel here and try and blot any last liquids off of the very top of these guys, because the drier they are, the less moisture we have to remove before we start caramelizing the top. Let's see there. Looking good, but they're still looking somewhat uncooked, even though they're cooked through completely. The fats aren't caramelized at all. Don't have any of that good color yet. So I think I'm gonna finish up our sauce here since I can do that ahead of time when we're sort of waiting. Oh, hey, just about a perfect size. Thanks for the sparks, Legacy. Back into our sort of cleaned pan, at least rinsed out pan. We still got our flame there. Can't hardly tell that it's there, but there's still a flame there. See how we're looking here. Starting to get a little bit of color, very light, but I think I'm going to give that another 5 minutes. We're going to fully bake that in the oven and then just add the caramel at the end, just pour it in. We need to wait until we're waiting on our potatoes. got some really fine bubbles coming up here. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit here because I don't want to break the skin on the potatoes. I just want to cook them. I probably should have pricked them with a fork. Actually, I can do that right now. Just break the skin so that it doesn't peel back even further. Also use that as a little bit of a test to see how far along we are, and those definitely need a bit longer. Lining them somewhat in a line here. Actually, I should move that guy over there a little bit. That way we can fit them both on here, I think. Yeah. Because there's one singular heat pipe in this that's going along the center. So, trying to line them up with that so that they evenly cook on the top. Surprised this ice bath cooled that down this quick. Feels like the can. I don't want to quite open it yet, just yet, but it feels like it's cooled down. I'm surprised that it ice chilled it down that fast. I mean, usually sugar holds on to heat. Usually sugar is really hard to lose heat. Sugar, bones. There's several things you just don't want to. You don't want to mess around with a roux either. So we're gonna do enchiladas and margaritas on Wednesday. Haven't quite figured out what I'm gonna do for enchiladas. I haven't done enchiladas in my house before, so completely new thing to me. And margaritas, I don't commonly do margaritas either, so we'll have some fun, try some new things. Let's see what's going on in the news today. See if Iran started bombing us yet. Let's pull our dough out. I've completely forgotten about that. That's been in there an extra 5 minutes on top of what I said. So that's been in there for about 40 minutes now. I think that's looking okay. See how we're looking on the bottom. Alright, I think we'll live with that. We're going to let that chill. Well, not chill, but relax for a little bit. We'll give that another 10-15 minutes cooling down with the rice in there. And then we'll pull the rice out. Still waiting on these potatoes to cook. See how well we're getting along here though. I'll take this large guy. That looks better than it was. It's still not cooked through. Sort of liking this wine, even though it's not my typical. It wouldn't be my typical choice for an old vine Zinfandel. It's a very nice drinkable wine, especially at a $10 range. At $35 range, no thank you. I guess I can sort of get the licorice that's going on there that some people are saying it's not very strong. Mostly pepper, mostly cherry. Don't get the quince, don't get the prune, don't get the raspberry or dark fruit. Also, don't get my typical leather or tobacco that I expect with a or barnyard that I expect with its in. So I don't know if I would really. Doesn't fit my normal profile for a Zinfandel, but I don't mind it. I think I'm going to throw that guy in there a little bit longer without the rice. That bottom looks a little bit lightly cooked for me. You can still see a little bit too much. That looks a little too undercooked for me, so I'm going to throw that back in there. I turned the oven up to 400 so that we can use it for the potatoes once those are ready to go. Actually planning on using the same parchment and everything from this guy. Put it right back here. Didn't want that warm hot rice on my cutting board for too long. Oh, cook potatoes, please cook potatoes. Starting to get there. Let's see what we got here. This is feeling cool to the touch. So we're hoping this ain't gonna explode on me now. Already looking alright. Already thinking maybe could have cooked this a little longer, but well, maybe this is alright. Let's see. Could have gone longer. Still looks pretty good. I mean, it's thickened up nicely. We'll set that, I mean, that's thickened up nicely. You know, normally that would be pouring. Let's give these potatoes another try, see if I can smash them yet. Still want to give those just a little bit longer. We've given our pie crust about another 5 minutes here. Let's see how that's looking. A little bit drier, still want to give it another 5 minutes or so. I'm going to cut the heat on the potatoes and let them carry over cook in the boiling water. And I think I'm going to start my shallots and garlic for with our corn and spinach. Swap mics here so you can hear me sauteing. Oh, that smells lovely right off the bat. bit more oil there, because, I mean, this is already looking pretty dry in the pan. I can already smell that garlic smelling pretty toasty. Don't want to go too much further with this. Get this. Turn our heat down. Pull out our frozen corn. We'll ignore that. Add a healthy dose of salt. Okay, salt is now healthy again for you, depending on what study you listen to. Alright, let's pull our dough out. That's looking nice and cooked now. Take our potatoes out one at a time here. Let's make sure that these bigger guys are cooked through. I think we'll be okay. It's on the edge. Now we come into our conundrum of running out of space. Yeah, it's still too warm for me to touch. And that's looking like a hot mess. Let's see if we can't do better with our second. I want to get them down thin enough that they're gonna crisp up a bit, but you still want them to be somewhat attached too. We're right on that edge of whether these are cooked enough. These are also probably the wrong potatoes to be doing this with. I'm just now thinking about that. These guys tend to be a little bit more waxy. This is best done with a more starchy potato. Could easily throw some rosemary with these guys, that'd be great. This is also best done with smaller potatoes. Probably shouldn't have elected to do these. Already thinking this was maybe a little bit of a mistake. Those French reds I had on Thanksgiving would have been perfect for this recipe. Get rid of this hot water. Turn this back on, but a really low temp. We got these guys going away. Pinch more salt to these. And our spinach. And lastly, some butter in there with our spinach and corn. And our temperature is off on this. We're just going to let that sit. That's all set now. All of that spinach cooked down to just that. Isn't that amazing? I always find it amazing how little spinach ends up after you cook it. Okay, so we got that set, we got that set. We need to broil our beef. And now that we got our tart all set here and cooked through, and the bottom's nice and cooked through looking now, we'll take a small spat and add our caramel here, or dulce de leche. Now you can get this much darker too. I mean, you could cook this instead of the hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours that I cooked this. You could easily cook this 3-4 hours and just get it absolutely beautifully dark. Could look like a richest, darkest caramel you can find. You can do just this with technique. You can see how thick that is. Just let that even out a little bit on its own. Starting to get there, starting to definitely get some sizzle, and gonna give that another minute or two as it is. We gotta throw these guys back in there. I totally forgot about these. Drizzle of olive oil. Salt on each of these. And into the oven. Starting to get close to looking there. Season the top here with salt. Give it that salted caramel term that everyone loves. Take a photo of this guy. Alright, I think it's time we pull these guys out. I think they've got their charring on top now. I'm debating giving those another couple of seconds, a little bit longer. You can see it's awesome. This is already pulling away from the shell, so you can tell that this is going to, no problem, be cut. Still quite warm on bottom, so we'll leave that with the towel underneath it. Definitely getting warm now. Stick those out like that. Yeah. I could thicken this more, but I'm just going to leave it as sort of a jus. So I think I'll like it better. But you could easily add a cornstarch slurry into that. You could easily, in the amount of time that I've had here to toy with it, you could have easily done a roux and cooked it through. But just keeping it simple, just adding a little bit of butter there. We're waiting on our taters. I'm going to put these back. I'm going to throw these down in the oven here with the potatoes to keep them warm. I just realized my stream stopped on Mixer. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone's comments. Doesn't look like it. There we go. Huh? How weird. It's not showing me a live stream on my computer, but it's showing on OBS that I'm still live, so I'm gonna assume that I'm still alive. While we're at it, might as well throw our bread in the oven to warm it up a little bit too. Potatoes haven't browned at all. We may be waiting on them a little while. Working on a 3-hour stream tonight. That's a bit much for cooking dinner, but then again, I don't try to rush things. Like I said, I try to do things my speed. Use our same plate as before. We'll give it a rinse off so it looks pretty for the photo. I thought we swapped. Oh well, we don't need it over there anymore. Pull the short ribs out, let them rest a little bit. I don't want them overcooking since we've spent so much time and effort into perfectly cooking them in the first place. And I do mean time and money, considering that, you know, I did pay to keep that water bath warm for 48 hours in order to cook them. It's not cheap. No browning on the potatoes yet. I doused them in a bit of oil, so it may take them a bit to heat up again. But the oil should help cook them quicker once they are to temp. Yep, I'm still here. Well, we got our caramel tart done now. It's still got to cool and gel a bit more, but it's quite hot on the bottom, but the sides are still holdable. And it's thick enough that it hasn't settled on its own. You can see there. We got sauce waiting. We got ribs waiting. And we got our spinach and corn done. We are just waiting on our potatoes to finish up, which I'm actually thinking are probably going to be another 20 minutes, unfortunately. Not a great win this time. The potatoes are not a win this time. I should have done a different type of potato, and I probably should have selected smaller potatoes. So messed up on the potatoes today. I went with butter balls, which are they're pretty mid-range, but they are on the waxy side. I should have gone with a much starchier potato. I was saying earlier the French Reds, those fingerlings that I had on Thanksgiving, those would have been amazing for this. So basically we're just waiting for those potatoes to get some color and look pretty. We're just keeping everything else warm while we're waiting. So you have a good couple of games. What are you playing? Wednesday's dinner, we are doing enchiladas and margaritas. Both new to me, so both should be fun and interesting and different. I'm not a big tequila guy. I was originally thinking tacos, but I've done tacos, and so I thought, yeah, let's do enchiladas. It's something different. So we'll try that. I played a couple of rounds of Modern Warfare right when it first came out. I don't think I've ever played Rainbow Six. I haven't played many games in the last... I gave up a lot of gaming and a lot of that for when I was in college and working my way after college. I sort of gave up on a lot of gaming, but sort of tempted to get back into some of it. But most of the games that are out there right now, like, they're either too developed and too out there already, with a dedicated core group of people that have been playing them for years, or it's just something that I'm not really interested in. So waiting for the next big strat game, or maybe the next big MMO to come out myself. Sort of tempted by Pantheon, the MMO. It's basically EverQuest 3. It was started by the same guy that started EverQuest, and he just recently passed away. Tuned down some wine. I have been slowing down with how much I'm drinking. Yeah, I liked a lot of Brad's games, and so yeah, it is sad that he passed. He passed sort of young too. But anyways, Pantheon's sort of third level of EverQuest, but I mean, it's been the most anticipated MMO for 3 years now, and it's been in they've been doing crowdfunding for, I think, over 10 years now for this MMO, so it's gonna be one heck of a game if it ever comes out. It better be. I sort of miss the days of the heydays of when EverQuest was the thing, and I played EverQuest for a long time. But even when WoW was in its, first startup, I miss those days, and I don't know if we're ever going to see games like that again, where so many people are playing the same game. I mean, you can maybe argue for Fortnite these days, but as big as Fortnite is now, I don't think Fortnite is as big now comparatively to what EQ was back then. I mean, the gaming market was incredibly smaller comparatively, but if you had the same percentage of people playing EQ nowadays, it'd be... I mean, you could literally order Pizza Hut through EverQuest. I have no real. I have appreciation for Fortnite. Fortnite is very much not my game. Uh, and it's the same reason that I never got into WoW. It's the graphics are too cartoony for me. The design is too. It allows them to do a lot more fun and interesting stuff that probably gets kids a lot more interested. But as an adult, it's just not what I'm interested in. I'd much rather PUBG if PUBG was a fully developed game, which it isn't. We're starting to get there. Still not going to be like potatoes are a fail, but we're going to try and get as much color and make them as pretty as possible as we can. I just spent $15 on Civ 6, Civilization 6. I may play that a little bit, but I'm not going to get hugely into that either. That's not going to be something I'm streaming or anything. I'd love for someone to actually. I've played Tribes pretty much my entire life. I've played Tribes 1. I played Tribes Renegade, which was a modification that became more popular than the original Tribes. I played Tribes 2, I tried Tribes Ascend, I played Tribes Vengeance, and really the only real issue with Tribes all along has been that it's never had a proper company behind it backing it up. It's never had the proper funding, it's never had the proper marketing. It's an incredibly fun game. I mean, if you can find a server of people to play with, which is impossible now, it's an incredibly fun game to play. And I'm sort of sad that it never got properly done. A large part to that was they created Tribes. Tribes became hugely popular, and then Bungie came out with Halo, and Halo was on console, was on Xbox, and that pretty much spelled the death of Tribes. Even though you can't really fly in Halo. You have jetpacks in Tribes. Otherwise, they're almost identical games. That's the last of the wine I'm drinking until I plate of food in front of me. But I've been watching some Modern Warfare. I like watching the Thumbless guys on Mixer. I watch a fair amount of PUBG as far as streaming. I watch a fair amount of Shroud. I find Tarkov, that'd be a great game to play. It's way too slow for streamers. You can see they're losing. It's way too slow for the kids. The kids can't get into the whole like MMO part of it, where you're building your base and you're developing all this other stuff. You're only shooting one or two people in a round. But that's already blown up more than I would want it. If I had found that before Shroud got into it, that is exactly what I'd be looking for. Alright, let's go with it. The potatoes aren't going to look pretty. But they what I got. Let's take the bread out first. Just warming up our little thing of bread. So like I said, not quite what I was dreaming of. They'll still taste good, but they won't look pretty. So we got that. Got our spinach and corn. Take one of our beef ribs here. Pour a little water over our burned thumb. Well, we're wrapping up here. I'm gonna wrap this up here. The potatoes aren't quite what I wanted, but that's life. And then we got our jus. So we'll pour a little bit of our jus over the I'm breaking some fine dining rules here. Fine dining rules, you would never pour the sauce over the meat. You would have it around the sides. Have it so you can see the sauce and you can see the meat separately. Breaking that rule. So we got that, we got that. Pour ourselves a glass of wine for dinner. Put our thumb underwater again. You too, Legacy. Have a great week. Have a great day at school tomorrow. So I am going to enjoy this lovely hunk of very warm and tasty beef. And I hope you have fun playing your games. And I hope you see me back here on Wednesday. We'll do, like I said, we'll do margaritas and enchiladas. Have a great week.